Hi guys, Evan here. This is a continuation of yesterday's video where we're talking about what to do in your last month of the LSAT prep so that it's productive and you stay calm and happy. And yesterday we talked a little bit about some things you can think about to reduce your anxiety, namely that, this isn't the end of the world if we don't put in your best performance on this test. Now, I wanted to add a little to that. There's a tendency when you maybe get too focused on the possibility of delaying to, take your foot off the gas right now. So let me just reiterate and say that point from yesterday a little bit differently. If you do decide to delay, be comfortable with that decision. It's fine. If you don't decide to delay, right, because we're coming up on the 9/7 deadline for when you delay. If you don't decide to delay, put your head in the game 100% and focus on doing the absolute best possible for this exam. Block out the possibility of the hereafter, all the LSATs you could potentially take, and just focus on doing your best on this one game day. Remember, you have to peak. Your idea is that you want to peak your performance right there on test day, So again, sometimes I don't like how pervasive sports analogies are in our culture, but here, it really works, It's like you're getting ready for the Olympics, and it doesn't really matter how you run right now. It certainly doesn't matter how you run 3 weeks after the show. What matters is what you do on test day, right? So, train, and the way you do that is through practice tests. Okay, so now that I've kind of said what I want to say about those subjects, I want to talk about the other big thing that people worry about during this time period, and that is timing. If you could sum up one thing that's everybody's enemy on the LSAT, it usually ends up being timing. At first, you may not understand questions, you might not have the proper strategies under your belt. We can always take care of that problem, just by learning, by studying the skills you need. Timing is the one where you're really bumping up against what might feel like a very solid wall that's hard to get beyond. However, like I suggested yesterday, I think that wall is illusory, okay? If we just keep your head down and keep practicing and trying different strategies to improve your timing, I know you're going to see improvements there. So in this last month, that's really the main focus. You've got the skills, you've got the habits, you're starting to polish them, and we need to pick up speed and build pace and comfort and confidence with going fast during this time. So how do you do that exactly? Well, other than the key element, which is just that you're repeatedly practicing over and over again, for me, the name of the game with timing is experimenting with different things to see what works, okay? One of the classic debates is whether it's best to continually practice at the 35-minute time limit, and just try and get better and better at that and creep up and get to a couple more questions gradually, like over the course of several prep tests, and then eventually you're getting to as many as you think you can, right? Or there's another approach, which is you can give yourself more time than the 35 minutes and then try and shave off a little bit of time there. And ultimately, it's impossible to know which strategy is the correct one for everyone, So what you need to do is experiment with where you think you're going to make the most progress. I'm going to do a thread in the forum so we can talk about maybe what approach you would like best. But for people who don't have any trouble with accuracy at all, if they're going, say, at 45 minutes, right? I generally recommend they shave down and try and maintain that accuracy with shaving off time, okay? If, on the other hand, you find that you're not doing much worse on a 35-minute section than you are on a 45-minute section, but you're having problems with accuracy, well, it might be better for you to continue working at the 35-minute pace and try and build up your accuracy. Or maybe do a mixed approach, and some days do the 35-minute section, some days give yourself a little more time. So it's all about experimentation. I know that sometimes it would be nice if I could say that there's a clear-cut right way to improve accuracy while being faster, right? But unfortunately, there's going to be different approaches available that might work better for different people. So let me outline those two strategies again quickly. One, say I'm completing the whole section with 90% accuracy in 40 minutes. But then I drop down to 35 minutes, try a section in 35 minutes, and all of a sudden my accuracy is 70%. It falls off the deep end. I complete the section, but my accuracy gets terrible, right? Well, in that case, what I would recommend you do is shave a little bit of time off of that 40 minutes and work your way down to a 35-minute pace, trying to maintain accuracy as you drop down. You might not, retain the full 90% accuracy when you finally get down to 35, but if you're better than that 70% where you started off, say you're at 80%, that's a pretty good showing, right? And then from there, you can continue working at the 35-minute pace and building that accuracy back up. The other strategy is if you're suffering accuracy problems such that, you give yourself 40 minutes and you don't do much better than you did at 35 minutes, well, probably we want to just stick at the 35 minutes and try and build that accuracy up with that pace. Now, as far as nuts and bolts, there's a lot of classic things to try to improve your speed. And the main thing that people do wrong, right, the main trap that people fall into over and over again is spending too long on difficult questions, right? So I've tried to put this advice in as many different places as possible so you'll be sure to run into it, and I want to put it here again. Every test is comprised of questions of differing degrees of difficulty, right? Varying degrees of difficulty. And sprinkled throughout each test is a small number of questions that are really, really, really difficult. They're kind of there to separate the high 170 scores from the middle 170 scores, and what they represent for people who maybe aren't at those scoring ranges is just a trap that you can wade into and waste a lot of time. So what I want you to do is avoid those traps. If after, say I'm on a logical reasoning question, and after 2.5 minutes I feel no closer to solving a problem, even after 2 minutes you feel no closer to solving a problem, well, circle that one, make a guess answer, and only come back to it at the end if you have time. Don't continue sinking more and more time in it, when it becomes clear that you're not really going to get a lot of return off of that necessarily. Invest your time in the easier questions that lie beyond where you can get points, right? And if you do that, it greatly raises the chance that you will have time at the end of the section to take another look at that question, at which point it might suddenly become much clearer to you. Similar with games, a lot of times when you get to the last two questions of an individual game, those questions represent a massive time investment if you want to get those points. Often there's no better strategy than just trial and error on them. Well, be aware of that, and be aware how much time you're sinking into those questions. It's okay to do a minute of exploratory, attempt to see if you can come up with an answer relatively quickly, but if it's getting to be a real time sink and you're bogged down after 2 minutes or so, probably best to circle that, mark a guess answer with the remaining answer choices that you haven't eliminated, and then only come back if you have time. You can't be mechanical about it either. Sometimes those last two questions are not so hard to solve, So you have to do a little bit of investigation on each one. But as you do more and more prep tests, you're going to develop experience and get a feel for whether or not you're making progress towards getting a solution or whether you're just spinning your wheels and you're stuck in quicksand and you need to pull yourself out and move on, you know? The better test takers, better LSAT takers are great at one thing, and that's leaving a question behind, putting it out of their mind entirely, marking a guess answer. They'll get back to it if they have time, but they don't let it stress them out. They don't worry about it. It just happens, right? You know, to get a 180, you can still often miss one or two questions, you know? So even a 180 test taker might see a question that's like, you know, this one's just not for me. I'm not getting it. I need to move on. So, and they're very good at doing that. A mid 170 and low 170s test takers, same thing. They're going to realize that a couple questions are not worth the effort, and they're going to move on from those. So develop that skill in your own test taking. And again, that's a matter of experimentation. You might start out trying to do it and realize you're skipping far too many questions, you know. Obviously, you can't skip every difficult question. So you got to build your skill of realizing which ones are too difficult for you and should be skipped, or which ones you can attempt. And again, that's going to come through more and more practice. It must be the 100th time I've said it, but it's one of the many reasons why we advocate you do so many prep tests. There's all these little things that are a matter of feel that you have to develop your instincts on. So develop those instincts and try different things, you know, experiment with what works for you. Experiment with, you know, skipping questions more readily than you're used to. And then if you do it too much, bring it back a little, you know, attempt more questions. Okay, and then, so moving on, what's another really common trap that people fall into? Well, I wouldn't call it a trap so much, but I do think that there's a major tendency on the part of a lot of test takers to spend more time than needed on easy questions. This is particularly true in RC, where conceivably you can just kind of recheck, and make sure you're right. Well, at some point, you got to move on, you know, from an individual question. So what I would do is experiment with spending less time re-verifying those easy questions and see if you're still getting the same level of accuracy answering them, but spending less time. So again, it's a matter of experimentation. You know, if you want to try and pick up a little time, try rushing through the easier questions right after the passage more quickly than you're used to. See if you retain that level of accuracy. If your accuracy then really drops off, well, invest a little more time, somewhere in between what you used to be doing and what you just tried, you know? And eventually you'll arrive at a balance. So again, experimentation. We're looking for what the path is that works best for you to get the most questions right. Okay, I know there's a lot of individual timing questions that people will have that I maybe can't imagine right now up front, so I'm going to make a thread where we can address any last month of prep timing concerns that you have. And if you've got some questions, I'll answer them there. And if there's enough substantive questions that require long answers, I'll make another section on this last month of prep timing concerns issue. Okay, looking forward to talking to you guys soon. And good luck with your last month of prep, of course. We'll be talking to you many more times, but, you know, do your best. Okay, thank you. Bye.